Hey everybody, this is Craig from the University of Applied Research and Development, and it is our honour to have Billy Bob Brown, who is the Assistant Executive Director with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency in the US. Hi, Billy Bob.
Hey, good afternoon or good morning.
Great to have you with us. Why don't you tell us about your role and what you do with the agency?
Sure, thanks, Craig. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with everyone. I am the Executive Assistant Director for Emergency Communications here at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. My role as the head of the office or the head of the Emergency Communications Division is to ensure that government officials can communicate in times of disaster when needed, where authorized, ensuring that interoperable communications provides the greatest opportunity for mission essential activities to be performed to ensure the safety of our citizens.
Incredibly important role that you filled there. How did you come to be in this role?
So great question. I've actually been with the department for approximately 12 years. I started out as a program analyst. I actually was almost like an executive assistant or administrative assistant to the chief of one of our branches. That's where I got introduced to working with public safety stakeholders across the United States, particularly in the communications field. As I worked my way up, began working in communications exercises, supporting operational planning across the nation. Had an opportunity to lead the team of subject matter experts that work in emergency communications across the nation here at the department. Then had an opportunity to serve as chief of staff, or what we call the chief. At the time, we called it the chief administrative officer for the division. Then I had an opportunity to lead one of the department's 80 major acquisitions for almost 2 years as the program manager before accepting an appointment to head the office in my current position.
When you say subject matter experts, what kinds of people are those?
So what we try to do here at the department in partnering across the nation with state and local public safety communications officials and emergency communications managers across all levels of government, all across the critical infrastructure, we look to find people that have been working in the public safety communications field or the emergency communications field who already have a level of expertise and understanding of how to create interoperability for the various types of public safety communication systems or emergency communication systems, including voice, video, data, and information services. Those experts who already have credibility in the field, bring with them a large Rolodex, as it were, a number of relationships that they've built in their time working in their various fields, various departments. In lots of cases, they worked in local government, they worked in state government, they worked in industry, and they have relationships with people that allows us to more quickly move forward with some of the initiatives in a nationwide framework to try and drive interoperability.
You've mentioned stakeholders quite a few times. I know that you're very, very keen on and see the importance of partnerships. Why don't you tell us about partnerships and the importance of those and your vision for the agency going forward?
Sure. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with what's almost a little embarrassing story. So prior to joining the department, I served a full career in the U.S. military, and had a great opportunity, traveled the world. Lived actually in Japan for a few years. So was very proud to have served and been a part of the national security team here for the United States. Actually, I was in Australia several years ago, working in a joint exercise with forces in Australia. I mean, so I've loved working with different militaries across the world. But when I joined the department and I joined the Homeland Security team, I came with a frame of thinking that was from that military perspective, which is a little bit hierarchical, very much top-down driven, orders-based, that sort of thing. Within the first 3 or 4 months, I had an opportunity to meet with a group of stakeholders in one of our New England states. And as I started sharing with them, where the office was attempting to go, where the department was trying to drive the improvement of emergency communications interoperability nationwide, they very politely listened for about 15 minutes of my conversation. And I was actually on a panel, and one of the other panel members was, what we called a friend. He was a part of our stakeholder community and a part of a program that we working with practitioners across the nation. As soon as I finished, he turned and said, "Billy Bob, what I'd like to know is, why does the federal government always provide these unfunded mandates?" And every head in the room nodded in agreement with him. And for the next 10 minutes, I was blasted by all of these, public safety officials from across the state, telling me about how the federal government, brought these unfunded mandates to the local jurisdictions, to the state jurisdictions, very unceremoniously. And, so interestingly, I sort of dusted myself off, and I wondered, you got to know who your friends are. And, but then a year later, I came back to the same state, different setting, different group of people. But as soon as my portion of the discussion was done, it was almost an exact repeat of what had happened a year before. And I'm very glad that happened so early in my tenure, because it caused me to rethink and understand how in the way that we're sort of structured, the federal government does not own everything. It is a partnership with the state governments and local governments and critical infrastructure owner operators, private industry. It's all of us actually working together to make this whole homeland security enterprise work. And at the time we were talking about, we were publishing the very first national emergency communications plan, and we talked about how the plan was stratified. There were responsibilities in the plan that only the federal government could do. And we had to do those things, or we, the entire group, could not be successful. But there was another level that required actions by the state governments. And if the state governments didn't do their part, then we, the entire team, could not be successful. And then there were requirements and activities at the local level. And if those local governments didn't do their part, then we as a team could not be successful. So all of us had skin in the game and required some level of activities and responsibility to each other in order for all of us to be successful. So very early on, very quickly, I broke and threw away the hierarchical frame of thinking. There are organizations, agencies, and people that actually have autonomy over the things that they control. And if they don't agree, and if they haven't been given an opportunity to buy into any idea, and best of all is when they come up with the idea, pitch it to the federal government to adopt and sponsor, that's the big win. Find out what do they believe collectively is in the best interest of the homeland, what are they already committed to doing, and then chime in, with the things that only we can do at the federal level to collectively and collaboratively achieve the desired goals of the partnership.
Wow. So, what's something that you've done then in your tenure so far that's been a reflection of that new perspective that you've gained?
Well, one of the things that I probably would jump on most quickly to identify as something that I've been proud to be a part of and see develop, but recognizing that it is an ever shifting um um, pathway of sand that's always changing. So in communications, we recognize that technology is emerging and evolving all of the time, and we never stand still in helping operators understand how they can move information to seamlessly perform their mission essential functions. So a few years ago, about 7 years ago, we were working with the state of Utah on a project, and they were trying to migrate a system in order to accommodate some concerns that they had for their internal budget. What they called on the department to help them look at it and do some analysis, which required within the agency us to bring a much larger team to support them, including aspects of cybersecurity, because there were some emerging technology issues involved in that project. As we began to look at it, we began to understand that there were risks that they and the largest city in Utah were not aware of, that were being managed at a different level. But now, because of the budgetary considerations, they were going to have to manage that themselves. So it forced in that conversation a larger partnership across that state, and it forced a large partnership across our own agency here within the department to try to help them understand the risks, look for ways to mitigate the risks, and find opportunities where we could collaboratively partner to help them manage those risks. So that's really the first exposure that I had to a more holistic approach for our partners. As opposed to just my personal part of the portfolio concerning emergency communications interoperability. I discovered that interoperability is just one segment of a holistic approach in order to support our state and local partners.
Great. I think that's really great for emergency managers to hear that from you. Um, if I'm not mistaken, recently America's had a cyber attack on a pipeline in New Zealand, and we have a very large region called Waikato, and our district health board came under cyber attack, which stopped the operations of a large hospital unit and health services. So, as emergency managers, what are some things that we can start paying attention to that maybe we haven't done before to help our organization to be safer?
Sure, that's a great question. As emergency managers, one of the responsibilities we really have is to understand all the component parts of the team that provide for the safety of our property and citizens. And as I sort of articulated, communications is the part of the team that I am focused, laser focused on supporting. But the logistics team, the funding team, the administrative team, for depending on the size of the organization, the human capital team, all of those various component parts of emergency man team are essential to ensuring the successful execution of the operations. So sometimes emergency managers can become too tightly involved in the operations and believe that that's the only thing that they should focus on, when they have a great group of tactical experts perform the operations, which is saving the life, repairing the pipeline, restoring the cable, and all of those other functions, get left behind, could get left behind. But the emergency manager has to recognize that they are most successful when they ensure that the logistics or the back end support is available at all times to support the operator. That's where the emergency manager really makes their successful pitch, when they're looking at all of those other things that the operator depends on, like air, in order to successfully breathe that they need to get done.
Love it. Billy Bob, why don't you tell us about your book? You're also a published author, which many people might not know about.
Thank you for asking. I am a published author. The title of my book is Journey and Struggle. It is actually out there on Amazon. It could be searched and found with my name. The book is about my life view of purpose. And it was the intersection of purpose and technology that drew me to write the book. The end results of by my wife, by my family, to move from the full workforce uh, relatively soon, in a few years, in order to go into the nonprofit sector to try and make a difference for poverty in the world.
And I'm just looking at some of the reviews, people saying, wow, I just have to say wow about your story that you've written. Why is that something that's important to you? I can see you've worked in home to help people with homelessness as well. Is this something that your family growing up was involved in, or have you made it your own personal mission?
Yeah, it should. I heard a story several years ago that described the haves and the have-nots in the world, and it just powerfully moved me to want to contribute whatever I can to support.
Love it. You've got such a wide range of responsibilities in your role. If someone was wanting to get into emergency communications, what would you suggest that they do to build some life experiences in before they pursue that career?
Learning and being good at the sciences, uh, learning and being good in math. Those are all very helpful. 6 years ago, in the analog days, you can think about information videos uh, and emergency management. So uh, a officer safety, number one, because officer safety is critical to being able to perform the actual operation, which is, saving a life, protecting property, and ensuring, the health of all of our citizens.
Well, Billy Bob, thank you so much for your time today. I do really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your experiences with us. And I wish you all the best in your role going forward.
I think I might have lost a little audio.